There are moments in life when our instincts whisper a warning, a sensation in the chest, a tightening in the stomach, a stillness before the storm. You walk into a room and feel the weight in the air, a heaviness that doesn't belong to you. You hear words spoken not to lift you up, but to subtly pull you down. You sense eyes watching, not with kindness, but with calculation. In these moments, you are not paranoid. You are present, you are awake. The world teaches us persistence. Stay strong, push through, don't give up. But wisdom teaches something else. Sometimes the strongest act is to walk away. If the energy of a place begins to drain your clarity, if the laughter around you masks quiet cruelty, if your values are ridiculed in the name of being realistic, that is not a place for you. A flower does not bloom in poisoned soil. A sword does not shine in muddy water, and your spirit will not grow where it is constantly cut down. Not every battle is yours to fight, not every room is yours to stay in, not every person is your teacher. So, listen to the discomfort, to the silence, to the signal beneath the noise. If that happens, leave the place immediately. Not out of fear, but out of respect. Respect for your time, respect for your peace, and above all, respect for your path. 1. There is a kind of knowing that doesn't come from books, teachers, or logic. It rises quietly like mist over a still lake. It arrives not with noise, but with a feeling subtle, clear, undeniable. This is intuition. It is not loud like panic, nor sharp like fear. It's softer, more refined. It whispers, not shouts. And yet, when it speaks, it's often the most honest voice in the room. 2. In our world, intelligence is often defined by analysis, by reasoning, by the ability to measure and compare. But what of the wisdom that arises without calculation? What of the moment when you walk into a place and your body tenses, though nothing seems wrong on the surface? Or when you meet someone whose smile is wide, but something inside you grows quiet? That is intelligence too, the intelligence of your inner world. 3. Intuition is not mystical. It is biological, psychological, and spiritual all at once. It is your life's experience, conscious and unconscious, moving faster than your thinking mind. Your nervous system reads body language, tone, and energy before your brain assembles a sentence. Intuition bypasses the delay of logic. It tells you what your mind will take minutes, hours, or even years to understand fully. 4. Many of us were taught to ignore this voice. We were told, don't be sensitive, or give it a chance, even when every fiber of our being said something was off. We were trained to doubt ourselves, to explain away discomfort, to rationalize what we felt. Over time, this disconnect becomes costly. We stay in places too long. We trust people too deeply. We betray our own sense for the sake of appearances. 5. But the truth is, your intuition has always been there, waiting for you to listen again. It's in the chill down your spine when danger walks by in silence. It's in the fatigue you feel after a single conversation that looks harmless, but leaves you spiritually drained. It's in the peace that falls over you when you're finally where you're meant to be. These are not accidents. They are inner signals. 6. When you begin to honor this intelligence, something shifts. You no longer wait for evidence that harms you before you move. You don't require wounds to prove that something is wrong. Instead, you begin to trust the invisible. You begin to trust you. This is not paranoia. This is presence, being deeply attuned to the moment and your place within it. 7. The more you listen to this voice, the stronger it becomes. It sharpens like a blade that was always there, only waiting to be used. You start noticing what others miss, the change in tone, the subtle disrespect, the buried aggression beneath a joke. You no longer need to justify your decisions with logic that convinces others. Your knowing is enough. 8. Some may say you're being dramatic. Some may call it overreaction, but their judgment is not your guide. What they dismiss might be your deepest truth. And if you keep ignoring that truth for the sake of fitting in or being polite, you risk betraying something far more important: your safety, your peace, your path. That's why intuition is not a luxury. It is a necessity, and more than that, it is your first intelligence. There are things in life that cannot be seen, but can always be felt. Energy is one of them. Long before someone speaks, long before a situation unfolds visibly, something within you already knows. You enter a space, and the atmosphere meets you warm, heavy, charged, or cold. There is no explanation needed. Your body has already begun to respond to the unseen. This is not superstition. This is sensitivity. And sensitivity, despite what the world may tell you, is not weakness, it is clarity. 2. Everything carries energy: people, places, even silence. Some rooms hum with openness, while others vibrate with tension. Some people walk in and bring ease with them, while others carry storms behind their eyes, no matter how calm their face may seem. The truth of a space is never just in what is said or done, it is in what is felt, what is unspoken, what your system picks up before your mind can interpret it. 3. When words and energy do not align, believe the energy. Someone may speak with kindness, but their presence makes you shrink. A workplace may promote well-being, yet every meeting leaves your shoulders tighter and your breath shallow. Energy does not perform, it reveals. Words can deceive, smiles can be rehearsed, but the frequency behind a person or place is always honest, and your nervous system knows it. 4. There is a reason you feel lighter after being with some people and drained after others. This is not random. It is not just your mood. You are in constant exchange with your environment. Every glance, every word, every silence, it enters you, even if you pretend it doesn't. And if you consistently ignore these exchanges, the cost adds up. You begin to carry energies that are not yours. You begin to feel things you can't explain, and they weigh you down like invisible chains. 5. Animals know this. Children know this. Watch them. They move toward calm, safe energy without being told. They step back from chaos, even when it's masked behind a pleasant tone. But as we grow, we are taught to override these instincts, to smile even when uncomfortable, to stay even when something feels off, to rationalize what we feel instead of trusting it. In doing so, we lose connection to one of our deepest navigational tools, the ability to read energy. 6. There is a quiet intelligence in being able to walk into a room and sense the undercurrent. Not everyone has that awareness, but those who do often carry it like a burden. They sense too much, they feel what is not being said, they absorb what others ignore, but this sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a gift, a compass, if you choose to use it, rather than numb it. 7. Energy cannot be faked. It cannot be polished or hidden with clever words. When something is off, it will always reveal itself in tone, posture, timing, gaze, or even in the way someone avoids your eyes. The more present you become, the more you start to notice these small signs. The more attuned you are, the harder it is for manipulation or falsehood to find space in your life. 8. So when something feels off, even if you cannot explain why, pause. You don't need immediate proof to honor your perception. You don't need consensus to trust what you feel. Truth does not always arrive in sentences. Sometimes it arrives in the heaviness in your chest, in the urge to step away. In the moment, your peace is replaced with alertness, and in that moment, the energy is speaking. Listen, because energy, unlike words, doesn't lie. 1. You are not separate from your surroundings. Every place you spend time in, every person you share space with, every environment you allow yourself to exist within, all of it shapes you. It's not always dramatic or immediate. Often it's subtle, quiet, a slight change in posture, a gradual shift in thoughts, a slow dimming of your inner light. Without even realizing it, you begin to reflect the atmosphere you are immersed in. 2. Imagine placing a crystal in clean water. It remains clear, untouched. Now, imagine placing that same crystal in murky water. Over time, the residue clings to it, even though it never asked for it. You are that crystal. And the places you go, the energies you surround yourself with, begin to leave impressions, whether you welcome them or not. That's why being mindful of your environment is not luxury. It's survival. 3. Some environments nourish you. They bring out your calm, your curiosity, your creativity. You feel a sense of expansion, like your spirit has room to breathe. There is no need to shrink, to pretend, to defend. You are not being tolerated, you are being seen. These places heal without saying a word. They require no explanation, and when you leave them, you feel fuller, not just in body, but in presence. 4. Other environments deplete you, slowly, consistently. At first, it may be just fatigue, then doubt, then a strange forgetfulness of who you are. You start questioning your worth, not because anything has changed within you, but because the space around you does not reflect your value. When you are surrounded by criticism, chaos, or emotional hostility, your inner world cannot remain untouched forever. The body may stay, but the spirit quietly begins to withdraw. 5. A toxic environment doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers in small ways, through dismissive comments passed as jokes, through emotional tension no one acknowledges, through an unspoken rule that you must earn your right to rest, to speak, to exist freely. It's not what's said, it's what's repeated. The discomfort becomes normalized, and the longer you stay, the more you begin to believe that discomfort is just life. 6. That is why awareness matters, not just of what you feel, but of where you are, your clarity, your joy, your silence. These things are fragile when placed in the wrong container. Like a flame in the wind, even the brightest light can flicker and fade if the air around it becomes too heavy. The strength of your spirit is real, but so is the influence of your surroundings. 7. There is no shame in being affected. You are human. You are meant to respond to what surrounds you. That is not weakness, it is design. And the question is not whether you are shaped by your environment. The question is, what are you allowing to shape you? Because something always is. Every day, with every step, your mind, your body, your spirit, they are responding. 8. So look around. Observe not just how a place looks, but how it makes you feel. Pay attention to who you become when you are there. Is your breath deeper or shallower? Is your voice steady or hesitant? Do you feel free or do you feel watched? These are not surface questions, they are signals, because the environment you choose to stay in will either bring you closer to yourself or slowly pull you away. 1. We are often taught that courage looks like endurance, to hold on, to keep fighting, to stay the course no matter how rough the path becomes. From a young age, we are praised for pushing through pain, for not giving up, for staying even when we are silently breaking. But there is another form of courage, quieter, less praised, often misunderstood. It is the courage to leave, to walk away, to step back, not because you are weak, but because you finally understand your worth. 2. Leaving is not always running away. It can be the result of deep reflection, not fear. Sometimes staying becomes the real escape, an escape from the decision that demands growth. It takes strength to resist the pressure to endure at all costs. It takes even more strength to say, "This is no longer right for me," and move on without needing permission. That kind of courage cannot be seen on the surface. It lives within, where no one claps and no one sees. 3. There are moments when staying feels like loyalty, but ask yourself, loyalty to what? To a situation that harms you? To a pattern that traps you? to a relationship that dims you. True loyalty should never require self-abandonment. If your loyalty to something demands the betrayal of your peace, your growth, or your dignity, then what you are being loyal to is not love. It's fear dressed as duty, for sometimes the hardest person to disappoint is the version of you who thought they could fix everything. The one who believed if you just tried harder, gave more, tolerated longer, things would change. But maturity reveals that not everything is meant to be fixed by you. And courage, in its purest form, often means releasing the illusion that your endurance will rewrite a story already written in misalignment. 5. We live in a culture that glorifies struggle. Staying in uncomfortable places becomes a badge of honor. We are told that quitting is failure, that walking away is giving up. But what if walking away is the first real decision you make for yourself? What if letting go isn't the end of the journey, but the beginning of finally walking it with integrity? To leave when staying would cost you your essence. That is not weakness. That is wisdom guided by courage. 6. Leaving is not always about the other. It is often about you, your growth, your healing, your responsibility to evolve. And not every environment will evolve with you. Not every person will. If you wait for others to match your inner transformation, you may wait forever. There comes a moment when the bravest thing you can do is to honor your becoming, even if it means walking alone for a while. 7. There is silence in leaving, no applause, no explanations. Just the sound of a door closing softly behind you. And that silence can feel heavy at first, especially if you've wrapped your identity around endurance. But with time, that silence becomes space, and space is what the soul needs to breathe again, to listen again, to remember who it is without the noise, without the demand to shrink. 8. So the next time your heart says, "This is not for me," listen even if your mind argues. Even if the world says, "Be strong and stay," sometimes the strength is in the step. The one that leads you away from what was and toward what could be. That single step is not escape. It is alignment, and alignment is a doorway that only opens when you have the courage to walk toward it alone, if necessary. 1. There are certain lines in life that should never be crossed, not by others and not by yourself. One of those lines is self-respect. It is not pride, it is not ego, it is the quiet understanding that your worth is not up for debate. That your time, your energy, your presence, they are not to be given away to environments that belittle, ignore, or misuse them. Self-respect is the foundation you stand on when everything else is uncertain. 2. There are places you enter where you feel invisible. Conversations you join where your voice echoes back unheard. Dynamics where your boundaries are tested, not once, but repeatedly, slowly, subtly, until you begin to question whether those boundaries were too much to begin with. But here is the truth. Anything that chips away at your self-respect is too expensive, no matter how familiar it feels. No matter how much you once cared. 3. You do not need to fight for space in a place that is meant for you. You do not need to lower your standards to earn basic decency. The moment you begin to compromise your values in order to be accepted, you have already abandoned the most important relationship in your life, the one with yourself. And once that is lost, it doesn't matter how many people surround you, you will always feel alone. 4. There is a silence that settles in when you've compromised too much. It is not peace, it is numbness. A disconnection from your own voice. You tell yourself it's okay, that it's just temporary, that things will get better. But deep down, something in you knows this isn't alignment, this isn't respect. It's survival in a space that no longer sees you. And survival is not the same as living. 5. The longer you stay in a place where your self-respect is constantly negotiated, the more your inner compass begins to falter. You begin to tolerate what once would have felt intolerable. You laugh off what once would have made you speak up. You shrink, not in one dramatic collapse, but in small moments, one quiet betrayal at a time, until eventually you no longer recognize the version of you that was once whole. 6. But the beautiful thing about self-respect is that it never fully disappears. Even when buried under years of conditioning or silence, it waits. It waits for you to remember, to wake up, to draw the line not in anger but in clarity. It does not scream. It does not demand. It simply states, "This is not for me. I deserve better." And in that moment dignity returns, not because the world gave it to you, but because you claimed it again. 7. People may not understand your boundaries. They may call them cold, too much, or unnecessary. But remember, your boundaries are not for their comfort. They are for your well-being. You are not here to be easily consumed by others. You are not here to be constantly available, agreeable, or convenient. You are here to live truthfully, and truth at its root requires self-respect. 8. When you begin to live from a place of self-respect, you stop chasing validation. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You begin to walk differently, not arrogantly, but grounded. You don't just leave places that dishonor you. You stop entering them in the first place, and in that stillness you realize your presence is not something to prove, it is something to protect. 1. Peace is not just the absence of noise. It is the presence of inner stillness, the kind that allows your breath to flow freely, your mind to settle, and your body to loosen without needing to be on guard. Peace is not loud, it doesn't demand attention, it simply is until something disturbs it, and when something or someone disrupts that peace again and again, it is not a coincidence. It is a message, and the wise do not ignore messages that repeat themselves. 2. There are interruptions that are natural, a crying child, an unexpected change, the unpredictability of life. These are not the interruptions to fear, but then there are those disturbances that come with patterns. People who always seem to bring tension, situations that consistently pull you out of alignment, spaces where your nervous system stays alert instead of at ease. And when your peace is interrupted in the same places, with the same people, in the same ways, it's no longer random. It's a reflection of what you're tolerating. 3. Pay attention to how often you have to recover from certain people. Notice how long it takes you to return to calm after specific encounters. These are not just bad days. These are signs. Your peace is sacred. It is not meant to be shattered regularly. If you're constantly piecing yourself back together, perhaps the problem is not your ability to cope. Perhaps the problem is the environment demanding so much of it. 4. There is a kind of exhaustion that comes from having to defend your peace constantly. The exhaustion of walking on eggshells, of anticipating criticism, of bracing for the next conflict. It's subtle but cumulative. Day by day, your joy dulls, your energy drains. You become so used to unrest that silence begins to feel unfamiliar. And when peace becomes the exception, not the norm, something inside you begins to suffer. 5. Some people mistake chaos for passion. Others confuse intensity with importance. But real peace is not boring. It is not empty. It is deeply nourishing. It allows you to think clearly, to love fully, to create freely. When you're surrounded by true peace, you do not need to shrink. You do not need to earn your safety. You simply are fully present and fully accepted. And anything that repeatedly pulls you out of that state is not neutral. It is costly. 6. Often we normalize the lack of peace because we've been conditioned to equate struggle with meaning. We tolerate aggression because that's just how they are. We excuse tension because it's not that bad. But if your body tightens every time you hear their name, if your stomach sinks before every meeting, if you breathe better when they leave the room, your peace is speaking to you. Not in words, but in signals. Listen. 7. The most dangerous interruptions are the ones we get used to. We begin to believe that they're just part of life. We adapt, we minimize, we justify, but peace is not supposed to be rare. It is supposed to be your baseline. And while no life is free from occasional discomfort, consistent disturbance is a red flag not just about the external world, but about your internal boundaries. 8. You were not meant to live in a constant state of vigilance. You were not born to survive your days. You were meant to live them fully. So if your peace is being interrupted again and again, don't just silence the alarms. Don't label yourself too sensitive. Take note. The repetition is the teacher, and the lesson, if you're willing to receive it, will always point you back to your own center, where peace begins and where it must be protected. 1. There is something more honest than words, more revealing than gestures, and that is energy. You can mask your tone, shape your body language, rehearse your expressions. But energy always tells the truth. It moves ahead of you, lingers behind you, and speaks in the spaces between. It is the quiet resonance of your presence, and whether you're aware of it or not, you are constantly feeling the energy of others. And they are feeling yours, too. Have you ever entered a room and felt tension, even though no one said a word? Or met someone who smiled, yet something felt off? That's energy. You felt what they didn't say, because the body may stay silent, but the energy never does. And in the same way, you can also feel warmth, safety, calm, not from what someone does, but from how they are. Their energy is congruent, clear, aligned, and that's what your nervous system responds to first. Not words, but truth in motion. 3. This is why you must learn to trust your feeling before your logic tries to edit it, because sometimes your mind will say, they didn't mean it like that, but your body already tensed. Your heart already sank, your breath already shortened, energy reached you first, and while logic is valuable, energy is immediate. Your body knows before your thoughts explain, and in that knowing, there is wisdom that doesn't require permission. 4. Not every energy mismatch is dangerous. Some are simply a sign that you're in different places on the path. But when you repeatedly feel drained, unsettled, or small around someone, that's not just a mood, that's information. You're being shown, not through conflict, but through vibration, that something is not in harmony. And just because you can't see energy doesn't mean it isn't shaping everything. Your emotions, your motivation, even your physical health. 5. Energy doesn't lie, but we often lie to ourselves about it. We tell ourselves to stay in jobs, relationships, or places that feel wrong because they look right. We ignore the fatigue that follows certain conversations. We explain away the heaviness we carry after certain meetings. But no matter how much you rationalize it, your body remembers, the tension builds, the flow slows, and eventually your own energy begins to suffer. 6. To protect your peace, you must become a student of energy. Watch not just what people say, but how you feel after they've said it. Observe how you feel with them and how you feel after them. Does your mind expand or shrink? Does your breath deepen or tighten? Does your heart open or close? These are not small sensations. They are the compass. They tell you what's in alignment and what is not. 7. Your own energy is sacred. It is the space where your spirit lives, and who you allow into that space will either nourish or deplete it. You don't have to explain why someone's presence doesn't feel right. You don't have to gather evidence. Feeling is enough. Not every judgment is judgmental. Some are intuitive signals from a deeper part of you that wants to protect what you've worked so hard to heal. 8. As you evolve, you'll begin to sense energy shifts more clearly. You'll stop ignoring the signals. You'll stop silencing your intuition. You'll stop staying where the energy is off, just because the setting is familiar. And while others may not understand why you're stepping away, you will know. Energy doesn't need a reason. It only needs to be respected, because in the end, it is not what people say that tells you who they are. It is what their energy quietly reveals. 1. There is a belief many carry, often silently, that protecting their own space is somehow selfish. That saying no, stepping back, or setting boundaries makes them hard, cold, or uncaring. But let us reflect on something deeper. A tree does not apologize for the space its roots need to grow. The ocean does not feel guilty for drawing back its waves. Nature protects itself not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom. And you, too, are nature, too. Your space is not just physical, it is emotional, it is energetic. It is the atmosphere you carry, the quiet realm in which your thoughts breathe, your emotions rise, and your being unfolds. When that space is polluted by chaos, disrespect, or constant demands, you begin to wither quietly. And yet, many keep letting others walk freely through their inner garden, leaving footprints on the parts of themselves they've worked so hard to cultivate. 3. We often forget that the ability to create space is not a luxury. It is a survival skill. When life becomes loud, when people's expectations press in, when the world demands more than you can give, space becomes your medicine. Silence becomes your sanctuary, but it is not enough to find space occasionally. You must protect it. You must guard it like sacred ground, because without space, even your most generous self will become depleted. For saying, "I need time alone," is not an insult. Saying, "This is not good for me," is not cruelty. Saying, "I won't tolerate this behavior," is not overreacting. These are not signs of selfishness, they are signs of maturity, the kind that no longer waits for permission to do what is necessary for peace. When you begin to understand your value, you stop needing to convince others of your worth. You just protect it. 5. There will always be people who take offense when you draw a line. Some will try to guilt you, calling your self-respect a wall. Others will withdraw affection when you stop being easy to access. This is not a reflection of you. It is a reflection of what they were gaining by your lack of boundaries. And while it may hurt to lose connection, it is a greater loss to stay connected at the cost of yourself. 6. You must become familiar with what peace feels like so that anything less is no longer acceptable. You must know the feeling of being in your own presence without tension, without pressure, without performance. That space, quiet, honest, grounded, is where your real power lives. Protecting it is not selfish. It is responsible, because from that space, everything you give to the world becomes cleaner, stronger, and more authentic. 7. Letting people into your space is a gift, not an obligation. Your energy is not for everyone. Not everyone is meant to walk beside you, and that's not arrogance, it's discernment. You are not better than anyone, but not everyone is aligned with the direction your spirit is moving. And if someone cannot respect your need for peace, for pause, for space, then what they are seeking is not connection, but control. 8. As you grow, you will find your space becoming more precious. You will notice what disturbs your rhythm, what dims your inner light, what costs you too much to entertain. And with that awareness comes a quiet shift. You stop explaining yourself, you stop apologizing for protecting your calm. You begin to choose with intention, and though it may be misunderstood, you will know deeply, this is not selfishness. This is self-respect in action. When the peace is gone, when the energy is heavy, when your presence is tolerated but not cherished, you don't argue. You don't fight to be seen. You don't beg for alignment in a space that has already shown you it's not meant for you. You leave quietly, respectfully, completely, not because you are weak, but because you are clear, not because you are better than others, but because you are no longer willing to abandon yourself. You walk away, not in anger, but in wisdom. You understand now, not everything is meant to be fixed. Some things are meant to be released. If that happens, leave the place immediately, not out of fear, but out of love for your peace, for your growth, for your life, and in that departure you do not lose anything. You return to yourself.